One of the most important things you can learn about yourself is your sun sign in Vedic astrology, because this is your core identity. This is like the foundation of who you are. And when we talk about the four aims of life, health, wealth, relationships, and purpose, your sun sign is where you really find your health and vitality and your sense of Dharma, purpose, and meaning in life. And without this, we feel lost. We struggle with health issues. We struggle with vitality. So when you know this, when you learn this in your Vedic astrology, it's super empowering and super helpful for clarifying your path and purpose in life. When you don't know your sun sign, you may start to experience these deficient challenges of your sun energy, like feeling lacking confidence, lacking energy, lacking direction in life. But when you do work with your sun energy, you know how to bring out the more positive expressions of it. That's what we'll talk about in today's episode. I'm Jeremy Devins. This is Quietmind Astrology. Everything I share is based on 20 plus years and thousands of case studies. And if you're new here, get your free Vedic birth chart and see your own sun sign at quietmindastrology.com, where you can also get a reading with me. And you can also join New Moon Alignment, where we do practices to balance out things that get deficient and bring out the strengths of your chart. So when something is deficient, we have more of the challenges. When it's excessive, we also have challenges. When your sun sign is too strong, there's too much going on there, too much energy, then you could turn into a literal dictator like Adolf Hitler, who had a very strong sun in his chart. Or it could be just be controlling and demanding. It could become greedy and selfish when the sun is overactive. So we don't want to be deficient or excessive with anything in astrology. We want to find what is aligned. And when your sun energy is aligned, you're leading with confidence, leading yourself, leading others. You feel confident. You have full vitality. You're full of Ojas. In the Vedic tradition, Ojas is your vital energy. And it's actually the very subtle, more important thing than like calories or things like this that we kind of measure nowadays. But Ojas is this subtle glow and energy and vitality. You wake up feeling inspired and excited for the day. You go to sleep feeling rested. Right? This is good Ojas. And when your sun is aligned, you have more of this. You're also respectful of others and respected by others. There's a healthy level of humility, respect, giving, receiving, not leading to control, but leading to be of service, and also being a good follower as well. So this is an aligned sun energy. How it specifically shows up will depend on your placement of your sun, the sign, house, nakshatra, aspects. Things we'll cover in other episodes and things I go much deeper in one-on-one readings and in the mentorship program. But you may see this very obviously with some very prominent public figures who have sun very prominent in their charts, like Michael Jackson, the king of pop, king, the sun. Patsy Cline, the queen of country. The queen, the sun. The sun is the king or queen. Leo is where the sun is at its strongest because the sun rules Leo. Also, sun is very strong in Aries, like The Rock. Dwayne Johnson has sun in Aries, very ambitious, driven, powerful energy. And Madonna, who has the sun ruling her ascendant as a Leo ascendant in Vedic astrology for Madonna. And remember, Vedic astrology is based on the true zodiac placements. So when we say Madonna has a Leo ascendant, that's what was rising at the moment of her birth in astronomy, which Western astrology is not based on astronomy. It's based on the seasons. So when Madonna was born in the actual sky, the rising sign was Leo. So that means the sun is her ascendant lord. And if the sun is your ascendant lord, if you're a Leo rising, the sun's going to be very prominent for you. Now, if you don't have any of these placements, or if you do, it all is still very dependent on your own chart. The reason I use these people is because the sun is very prominent in their chart. Whereas somebody who might have like moon in Cancer, then the moon would be more prominent in their chart, or maybe they're equally prominent. But we see it very strongly with these people. And there's other factors as well that show why it's so strong for them. But on a high level, just for now, these are people you can look to as exemplars of an aligned sun energy. And also, they get misaligned at times, they get excessive at times, they get deficient. And if you're not familiar with Patsy Cline, by the way, she broke a lot of ground for women in music, and particularly women in country music, and won a lot of awards, did a lot of things innovating in country music. Walking After Midnight, these kind of crazy. You probably heard her songs if you don't know that name. As above, so below. So when we look at what does a planet, or we say a graha, what grasps energy in Vedic astrology, what does it mean? Well, we just look above and then we see how it plays out in practical real life below. This is a Hermetic principle and used in a lot of spiritual traditions, as above, so below. So we look to what the sun does in the sky, and it's the center of our solar system. So the sun can show where you are the center of attention. You're in the spotlight. People see you and you want to be seen. So if your sun is in your seventh house, like Michael Jackson, he wants to be seen in his relationships, in business. He sees a lot of success through partnerships. He was born into the Jackson Five as the leader of a group from a young age. The sun being strong tends to indicate somebody being naturally kind of thrust into leadership positions and being very prominent. Or someone like Madonna, who had her son rules her first house and her son's in her 12th house. So she puts more of a spotlight on pleasures of the bed, as they say in the old text. The 12th house is pleasures of the bed or sexuality. And she put a lot of energy and spotlight onto her sexuality at the peak of her fame. That's the sun putting a spotlight there. Or somebody who's really into astrology might have sun in the 8th house, putting a spotlight on transformation. So the house it's in is a big part of this spotlight energy and the sign, and we'll get to that in other episodes. The sun generates all of the light, all of the light. So when we look at the sky at night, we see the stars from far away, but in the daytime, we don't see the stars because our sun is so bright and we're close enough to it that's the case. So when we talk about light, anything to do with light, we're talking about the sun. So when we talk about shedding light on something, somebody being a bright light, somebody being bright, these are all the sun qualities. And it shows where your sun is, shows where you are a light for others and you're bringing light to people's lives. And again, we'll go into that in future episodes. Sun worship is one of the oldest religions. So sun salutations in yoga tradition or sun gods. And a lot of the mythology and story around all religions, many religions, is something to do with symbology similar to the sun. Like Jesus saying, I am the light and the way. Just like the sun is the light. There's a lot of overlap of sun worship, religion, spirituality, and the sun being the source of life, because without the sun, there is no life. And it's a really perfect balance of all the planets, but especially the sun, moon, and Jupiter, which are considered the sort of sattvic planets. We say sattvic is like pure or life-giving or more spiritually harmonious energies in astrology. And that's because without the sun, moon, and Jupiter, we probably wouldn't have life on Earth. The sun brings the light, the moon brings us nighttime and protects us from comets, and Jupiter protects us from a lot of stuff in space because of its big orbit. The sun is the king of the planetary cabinet, just like we talk about the sun being the king of pop or the king of country for Michael Jackson and Patsy Cline. Wherever the sun is in your chart, that's where you have the potential of sovereignty, leadership, royalty even, and being in a sense of power in that place. It represents your soul. What is the Latin word for the sun? Do you know? The Latin word for the sun, the astronomical term for the sun is soul, S-O-L. So that's also a word for the sun in many languages, soul, the sun. And so sun represents your soul, your essence. And if you've not seen the Pixar movie Soul, I highly recommend it. That is very close to actually the Vedic understanding of how the soul works, or reincarnation, or this energy that we're born with. I don't have kids myself, but anyone I talk to who has kids, they talk about how the child has this sort of essence that is maybe distinct from the parents. Like they're not into this interest and the kid is all about this interest out of nowhere, it seems. And that's the soul essence that's there. There's a personality, there's a drive, there's a motivation that is just kind of innate in the child. And the sun helps you see that. The sun represents your physical vitality. So if you have a lot of energy, low energy, sun transits can indicate movements of your energy up or down throughout the month or the years. Going through a sun dasha can affect this. The sun shows you where you take responsibility. So this is a place where you can be in a role of responsibility. It means respond able. able to respond, and able to lead, and able to take authority. So if you want to step into roles of leadership, if you want to, like in the Western culture, a lot of people are aspiring towards things like being a CEO or a boss, or having a freedom to do whatever you want. That's a lot of responsibility. So how you could do that, your sun could show you. So you want to check what sign, house, nakshatra to see where you actually could have the responsibility and authority to thrive on your own. And if you are doing that in places that you can't thrive, like maybe you would thrive working by yourself, but you keep trying to work for others and be a leader of a team and you're struggling there. Or maybe it's the opposite. You uh, really want to work for a team, but you keep doing everything by yourself. So the sun shows where you can be a good leader for others and be responsible for others in family, work, career, finances, all areas of life. As mentioned, the sun rules the sign of Leo. So when we talk about Leo, it's very similar to the sun. The sun is exalted in Aries. So that's where the sun gets a lot of power. Somebody like Dwayne Johnson has a lot of power and vitality and initiative energy, starts a lot of projects, very ambitious, very Mars kind of energy, because Mars rules Aries. So there's this strong connection of the sun and Aries. And when sun is in Aries, it does very well of all the sun things: leadership, authority, etc. The sun is debilitated in Libra. This is where the sun has more challenges. There may be issues of how to compromise, how to delegate, how to work with other people, how to find yourself and be in relationship without losing yourself. It can be a bit confusing with sun and Libra. The sun wants to be the center. Libra wants to be harmonious and balanced and compromising for others. The sun wants to be uncompromising and unbalanced and at its extreme, a dictator. The Libra at its extreme is completely focused on other people. So this is a oil and water kind of mix here when sun is debilitated in Libra. But very important point is that most people have cancellations of their debilitation. So if you have sun in Libra, or you know somebody who has it, or when we go through the transits of sun in Libra, it's usually canceled out by other factors. So it's usually not a huge deal, but it does mean we need to find ways to compromise when we have it there. We'll talk about that more in the sun and the signs episode. But an interesting thing about this is all US elections happen during sun debilitation in Libra. And what happens in all US elections is usually about 50-50 and divides the country dramatically all throughout history. It's not a modern thing. You can go back through history. All the old political rhetoric was just as vile as it is now. But it's this sort of debate. And very rarely, sometimes it happens where there is a landslide victory, but almost always it's a 50-50 kind of thing. And the sun is where we find authority and leadership and who is going to lead the country. And Libra is like, it should be this or that, left or right. And it's not clear. And Libra is also the scales, which balances things out. So we get these 50-50 elections. Now, other countries also have 50-50 elections and they don't do it during this time. So that's not a hard rule, but it's an interesting thing how there are a lot of elections around that time and a lot of conflict and problems like we see with sun debilitations. The sun is your source of your Dharma, your purpose. Dharma is a bigger word than purpose, but that's kind of the best way we can translate it. And it's like your calling, your direction, your aim. Like this is something you were born for, that you could say every human that existed, and then you come along and like you are here at this specific time in history to do something that only you can do. And it might sound like a lot of pressure or very dramatic, but it could be very simple actually. And you might be called to live a very simple life or a very extravagant life. All that's going to depend on your sun placement and your own free will and choices. But if you're looking for purpose and you're like, am I in the right career? Should I change my career? Am I doing the right thing? What about this? Should I get involved in this thing now? If you focus on the surface level noise of modern life and marketing and distractions and noise, then you're going to lose yourself and you're going to lose your sense of purpose. And there's going to be a sense of misalignment, of friction, disharmony. So the opportunity then is to move towards more harmony with your purpose. And your sun placement can help you see that. And it's going to evolve over time. We all have ultimately the same Dharma to express our gifts. So, what are your gifts? That's the real question. That's the question that astrology answers. And in this time where AI has become more and more prevalent throughout our lifetimes, and more structural changes in society and the workforce and the world mean that work becomes more and more optional, less required, less demanding, less that everyone has to have these certain jobs. More things can be delegated and resources reallocated. So then the question becomes so much more important of like, well, then if AI can do everything, then what is the point of having a human life? What is the point of humans? And that kind of existential question is coming up more and more for people. And even the experts, people creating all these AI tools say, I don't know, that's a good question. Well, that is a good question. And it's been answered for thousands of years by astrology. So in your birth chart, you can see clear indicators of where you're going to thrive and where you're going to struggle. So specifically what that looks like, you'll have to check your rising, your sun, sign, nakshatra, house, aspects, and look at the chart holistically. You want to be careful with the sun though, because it burns what it touches. Obviously, it's super hot. So if things get close, it burns up. We even get solar flares affecting the earth sometimes. Just go out on the hot summer day and you'll feel the heat, obviously. But when we have transits near the sun, they become combust. So when a planet or a graha is within 5 degrees of the sun, it becomes combust, meaning that it becomes more volatile, more intense. If you have this in your birth chart, like if Venus is combust with your sun, that makes your relationships more volatile. Or when we have Venus transits over your sun. So if your sun is in Pisces and Venus goes into Pisces, you're going to have some more combustible energy around your relationships at that time. So this is very important for transits and your birth chart to see where you can have this more intense energy. And it's a real calling to come back to this sort of inner light and connection to your light through meditation, through yoga practices, through spiritual work, to not burn it up, to not become too bright that you burn out, like the story of Icarus. You flew too high, you burn the wings, and then you fall down again. So there can be an arrogance and ego that comes with the sun, and that can lead to burning out and burning too bright and then fading away. Some more keywords with the sun: authority, leadership, power. The father. If you want to understand your father, your relationship to your father, or if you are a father, check out the sun placement in your chart. Government, leadership, control, confidence. If you feel low self-esteem or high self-esteem, if you feel like you want to, say, maybe make a big career change, but you're lacking the confidence to do it, your sun placement helps you know how to work with that and what you can bring out, where you're going to be more confident naturally, where you can play into your strengths. Sun can represent ego, as mentioned, the control, needing it to be a certain way. Ego is where you say it has to be this way, and then the sun becomes controlling and dictator-like. Sun is also about the truth, the light. So if you want to bring out more of these auspicious energies of the sun for everybody, regardless of your placements, then there's some things you can do. If you want to know more specific things for your placement, that's what we do in New Moon Alignment. I give you a guide for that. Practices, yogic practices, breath work, mantras, mudras, spiritual practices that have worked for thousands of years, remedial practices that are proven through time. And I've had a lot of experience with myself and clients seeing amazing results just doing the practice, and you are like reset and realigned. So there's specific ones you can do for your chart, which I give you in New Moon Alignment on my website. But for everybody, there's universal ones. Like if you want to increase your sun energy, wake up with the sun. Sync up your day with the sun. Go to bed at sunrise or wind down at sunrise and then wake up with the sunrise. And reduce blue light at night. That means computer screens, phones. You could have a digital sunset with the solar sunset. And then that makes it much easier to wake up with the sun also. So if you have trouble waking up early, check out what's going on before you go to bed and how late you're going to bed and what the whole routine is there. You want a dark, cold room at best and minimal stimulation before bed, after sunset. for general, everyone has different lifestyle stuff, but those are general good principles based on all the science and neuroscience out there. And the tradition of Ayurveda, which knew all this stuff thousands of years ago as well. Stepping into leadership roles. You want to become more confident. You want to be more in your authority. You want to be a leader. You just got to do it. You just got to step out there. When I was learning to teach, or I was learning to practice yoga, I took a teacher training not wanting to teach. And they said, if you really want to be a great practitioner, the best way is to be a great teacher. And if you want to be a great student, be a great teacher, because you got to be the best student to be a good teacher. And you got to learn a lot. And I wanted to be a student, so I became a teacher, right? And I had a natural inclination and I got great feedback, so I kept going on that path. And that led me to stepping into more and more leadership roles in my life. But I was very quiet and shy and timid and did not have a lot of confidence at the beginning of life, even though I have a pretty strong sun in my chart. It's in a hidden place in my chart. So I had to kind of excavate that and find my way of doing that, which isn't so obvious or direct. Like sun in 10th house is a very direct sun in leadership. But if your sun's not in the 10th house, then it's going to be different ways. It's not so obvious ways of how your leadership can come out. But when you start to step into it and you play into those gifts, then a lot of cool things can happen and a lot of the positive side of the sun comes out. It's auspicious for everybody to just honor parental figures, father figures, mentors, fathers, grandfathers, the paternal lineage of your life, the teachers in your life, which can be men or women, but honoring and respecting elders and guides before you is of service to them, but it's really of service to you and honoring your authority and leadership. And if there's people who have difficulty with being in roles of authority themselves, usually you'll find that they have difficulty with authority figures in their lives. Because as within, so without. We said as above, so below, as within, so without. As we treat ourselves, we treat others. As we treat others, we treat ourselves. So honoring other leaders helps us be a better leader. And when I say leader, I mean it's like how you run your habits, how you manage your home, how you manage your sleep, your work, your health. Like these are all roles of leadership. And then there's the obvious leadership of like being a boss, having employees, managing other people, being a parent. These are very obvious roles of leadership, but it's everywhere in life. There's roles that we are playing to lead ourselves and others. Now, unfavorable actions will bring out more of the unfavorable results. So if you're hiding your true self, putting on a mask, playing into ego, getting into control, power games, manipulating situations, you're going to likely find more difficulty with the sun energies and less confidence, less vitality, less power, less authority, less respect from others, less respect for yourself if you're hiding your true self. And this can be very vulnerable, actually, and very difficult. So it's easier said than done. But if there's something you feel and you need to say and you want to express and you want to share it, even just a little bit goes a long way with stepping more into your sun's gifts. If you're letting ego run your relationships, you're going to have a lot of problems, obviously. And that can be very pernicious where you're wanting it to be a certain way. You're wanting to tell them what to do, wanting to control things. Can be very subtle, wanting to look a certain way, wanting to be seen a certain way. These things can all get in the way of connection. Ego is in some ways opposite of connection and vulnerability. So if we're feeling disconnected from others, there may be some ego coming into things that needs to be checked. And one way you can do that is just look where your sun placement is and see the possible unfavorable side of that, and then do the practices to bring out the favorable side. Whenever we go far into the deficient or excessive side, we just want to do practices to come back to alignment. And then if you're disrespecting authority figures, as I mentioned, then you're going to be ultimately disrespecting your own authority. So nobody really benefits from that. So go back to the favorable side of things to bring out the more favorable expressions of your sun placement. And when you're aligned, again, you're leading confidently, you're full of ojas, vitality, you're respectful of others, respected by others, you're thriving in your health, wealth, relationships, and purpose, the 4 aims of life, especially the health and purpose. And you can do all of this with my guidance and support at quietmindastrology.com with a one-on-one reading, or you can join New Moon Alignment where we do practices to work with this, or you can even become your own certified Vedic astrologer in the Vedic Astrology mentorship, all at quietmindastrology.com. Check it out to get your free chart and continue on the path with me. And then check out the next lessons on the sun and the signs, houses, and nakshatras that will be on my YouTube page. All right, have a great day.